So please everyone, welcome on stage Petteri Koponen and Vanjoki.
Samalla sohvalle.
Okay, it's great to be here. I've been super excited about the event. The only problem is that we are in deep trouble. There was 100 pitches, startup teams pitching, and that's just the tip of the iceberg in Finland. These are companies looking for angel funding. And what do we have? Maybe 5 active angels in the B2C internet space and mobile space. Maybe a bit more, but if we count the really active angels. So that's a problem we need to solve, and that's probably something that we're going to discuss here. That's an area where we kind of thought that that's the biggest area, that's the biggest problem in Finland, how to get more angels, how to do more angel investments. And you are one of the few, how would I say, industry execs who have turned to angel investors. So what kind of drives you? Why are you doing angel investments?
So I think that, first of all, just like Petteri, I'm really quite impressed, with everything that we have seen here. I'm not so impressed by the turn-up of ex-colleagues of mine and other people who might have some private wealth that they could actually put in here. So that's been a bit of a disappointment. And hopefully, when they read stories about what went on in here, next time we will see a different invasion of those kind of fellows as well. But I think that actually one of the problems, Petteri, is the word angel. Because angel by default to me is somebody who does not expect a return. You do a favor. And when you are talking about investing in any kind of a form, in my opinion, there is always an expectation, short, long, medium, whatsoever turn, that there's going to be some return on that. And therefore, I actually don't like the word angel, and I never consider myself as a business angel, but rather an investor in growth initiatives. The difference, however, might be that when you invest in ideas, you don't expect an immediate return. So you're patient. But what's also quite important for people like myself who have had tens of years of kind of corporate thing, even if I was always lucky to work a little bit on the fringe, so I had a vision to outside world as well, that you actually, after your kind of career, you want to fill your days with intelligent stuff to do. And I also consider that it's like a ticket to buy yourself into something cool, something that actually fills your days with enough of stimulation.
How many of your ex-colleagues, let's say the ex-Nokia colleagues, how many of them are actively making growth investments or early stage investments?
So I know of too few. Of course, I don't know all the ex-colleagues, where they are and what they do. But certainly I can say that too many of them have actually stopped their busy executive life and decided to just go and do things that they never had the chance to do before, i.e. go scuba diving or playing golf or hunting or whatsoever as the main thing. So definitely too few is the answer, but I don't know how many. However, those that I know who have actively started to look at ideas and are growth investing, I see that they look much better than those who just do the hobby part.
Yeah. So it's easier to see that the ex-entrepreneurs, like small business or startup entrepreneurs, make investments, but is their experience more relevant than corporate experience for startups? Like that's an interesting question. I think, like, for example, like at Lifeline, we are all serial entrepreneurs, so we've done this before. And for an early stage company, I think that's very valuable. So, but kind of what are you bringing on table, like when you invest in very early stage startups as you do?
Let me turn the tables and actually turn the question back to you before I answer that. That how does it feel, after having been a successful entrepreneur, and completed your thing, now to be a financier as such?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah, it has been a big change. Like initially we all, Timo and I and Ilkka Paananen is kind of our entrepreneur in residence or working part-time at Lifeline. We kind of considered ourselves as a combination of entrepreneurs and investors, but you can't actually be. You have to be either an investor or an entrepreneur. There are no combinations. And we realized that what's the most frustrating part of being an investor is that we can't bring execution to the company. So we really have to trust the teams, and the teams have to be super good. We can't bring that kind of founder aspect into the teams. And once we realized that, we kind of tuned our investment strategy a bit and started thinking about scalability of our model and what it means to be an early stage investor. So that was a big change. And after that, it has been really, really great. We kind of found our spot, I would say, our sweet spot. Not as entrepreneurs anymore, but as early stage investors.
So when I kind of look at how relevant is it, that I've had 30 years of corporate, but how relevant is that to small ideas and startup companies, what I have been doing? When I was inside of a big corporation, I learned one thing, and that was that we didn't have all the great ideas. Actually, you really had to go and source the ideas from outside and somehow kind of nurture them and try to bring them in. And now looking at, the startup field from the vantage point that I have right now, I really feel that for somebody who's got an idea or somebody who's already progressed his idea, it's vitally important that you just don't look for money for what you're doing. But actually you look for somebody that comes in, brings the money, but also relevant experience to whatever it is that you perceive as an area of opportunity or problem for what you're doing. And in this way, that whole investment then perhaps becomes, instead of just being a growth investment, it has a little bit of angel dust around it, because you might get certain advice, direction, or drive, or connections that actually make your thing move faster.
What about scaling? I mean, you've been involved in huge businesses and doing things on really massive global scale, but is that something that's valuable for early stage startups as well, or does it come later? Do you plan to kind of introduce those or talk about those experiences later with the founders of your companies?
That's exactly so. So the embryonic forming stage of anything that you are creating is a very different thing than the growth stage, when you actually have proven either your original idea or another idea that has come along in the process of the embryo becoming something. But then when it moves to real growth, that you actually have proven your case and you start the expectation, it's a completely different game. And what I have seen, not so much lately in what I'm doing, but what I saw as an executive in Nokia, was that quite often the founder of something is absolutely the wrong person to take it through the growth stage. And that's also something, for the people who are starting their own thing is to kind of try to understand your own limits and what you're good at. And one other aspect of this is that quite often I see in those areas that I am active, and that's kind of in medical well-being and sports arena of startup activity, is that you see things that are close to each other. And you see that if these 2 or 3 or things would be put together, that actually would be the real thing. And then you start to discuss with these guys, and the pride goes in front of wisdom. And you just don't let go, where you actually should be letting go and take your pride somewhat down and actually see the potential of what you're doing in the context of something bigger.
I maybe somewhat disagree on actually both of these areas. First, I mean, when we look for the founding teams, we try to find, ensure that at least one of the founders is what we call a scalable entrepreneur. And we try to imagine that the company would be doing tens of millions of revenue, and one of them should still be there in the management team of the company. Not necessarily the CEO, but one of the key founders, because that's kind of probably more of the US model, where Mark Zuckerberg is still running Facebook and so on, and the investors and kind of just helped him to build the organization around him with more experience. And we think that this kind of, the fact that the team kind of transforms and the same, at least partly the same people stay there, it's very valuable for the company.
And actually we don't, Petteri, disagree on that you have the original kind of part in there. But when you said the word CEO or managing director, whatever we want to call it, that is a different animal. And in my experience, quite often, you don't have these Mark Zuckerbergs in the world too many. Out of the 7 billion people that we have, so how many are there? A handful maybe. But then having the original inventor as the soul or somebody from that team in the management is something that I really second as well.
The other part is that regarding mergers, I think either of the entities needs to already kind of have its, how would I say, business model in place. So after that, I think you can merge companies. But if there are 2 or 3 companies still looking for the model, it's probably a bit messy. And we actually have these cases going on at the moment, and we have kind of advised the founders not to do it yet. But once one of them kind of is a clear lead, then I think it starts to make a lot of sense, especially for the companies that are still struggling to find the model or struggling to scale. But what are you looking
in that model? You are kind of seeing that one of the parts in what you have is kind of superior to the others, and this way. That is pretty much like, a big company is acquiring a small company, is that you have the big one. The danger in that, in my opinion, is that actually the completing part dries out and does not deliver what you expected it to deliver. So therefore I was more looking at this, that you actually find the moment of putting some pieces together when they are more equal in their performance or stage.
Okay, so what else are you looking at the ideas that you invest in?
Well, I look at the people more than anything else, because the whole thing is about what goes on in the head of the people who actually have made the original idea. So it's about the people. But then,
if you are really specific, what kind of people? Like
that you can trust them, and that there is, besides the kind of energy for your own thing, that there is enough of consideration of things that might happen and so forth. And then, of course, from investment point of view, you have to kind of have your handshake and the feel of trust that you can actually trust that this thing is real.
Yeah.
But then when it comes just on my own kind of direction, I look quite a bit on things where it's not only immaterial, but that there is a material element, that you also are making a thing, something that kind of serves as a platform for a service-based business or upgradable somehow. So I'm pretty much looking at that there is also something in those things that I'm investing in.
Yeah. So we have almost like tactical criteria in addition to this impressive team, and the key thing is this scalable, one or more scalable founders. In addition to that, we're looking for category leadership. So the company should be able to specify their category in just one sentence so that it's simple enough. Like, let's say, amplifier cross-promotion for social games. It's very well-defined, relevant category. And in addition, and why that, the key reason is that in startup world, it's an order of magnitude easier to be number one in a category than number two, for example, no, number three. So it's easier to get excellent people, excellent investors, and so on. So that's important. And then we try to imagine, like, if everything goes fine, then probably this could be a huge exit. We use 100 million euros as kind of just an arbitrary number. We have to believe that it could be bigger. So that's also like, we're not business angels in that sense. We really look for huge exits for a very limited number of our investments.
When you're thinking about the investments that you have made, so when do you kind of see that, or what are the criteria in your mind when you go for a real A round or bring in kind of venture capitalists instead of the growth investors to kind of start to contribute to the company, besides running out of money?
Yeah. So usually our portfolio companies would run out of money already before kind of the traditional A round. So we need seed investors. And for some reason, most of the investors that have invested in our companies have come from abroad, from UK and US. So what we need to do is to build proof. Like, it's not yet, when they invest, there is no scalable business or steady revenues. But instead, we really need to carefully think, like, how do we prove the business, the validity of the business and the excellency of the team and so on. And we really focus on those things with the founders. And once we kind of feel that it's there, and we almost kind of immediately try to connect the founders with investors, and then the discussions start. That was mentioned earlier in the VC panel, that please start approaching the investors as early as possible. And we also believe that the dialogue needs to start very early, and then later comes the investment. So it's very, and the investors need to be a bit brave, because it's not that they invest in something where they can see steady growth, for example. And so, but luckily there has been enough brave VCs who are ready to do this kind of investments.
Yeah, I kind of look at that whole thing in such a way that once the kind of embryonic phase is over, and you can really see that actually what we now need, we need capital for a clear go-to-market plan, that this is how you're going to scale.
Yeah.
That's the moment when you want to bring in people who understand money, who don't necessarily understand the business so well, but who understand money, because then you get the pressure to the company for performance, which is so important, at the moment when you see that this is the way that we're going to grow.
Yeah, keeping a positive pressure is super important. Like, usually when the company starts kind of like not developing, not necessarily even like slowing down, but just there's an even like rate of development, then there's something wrong. You all the time need to kind of push it a bit, and it's good for the founders and investors and everyone. So I think we could probably take some questions if the audience wants to ask anything. So this is the time. There's probably a mic over there. we're running out of time soon, so any questions about angel or early stage investing? There's one over there.
Yeah. Hello, Pano Fabricius from Lappeenranta Innovation. Short question, how much return on investment is enough?
Nothing is enough. That's the nature of money.
Yeah.
Money, but you know, it's. But I'd say that if you cover what you invested, that's the minimum. If you lose it all, or if it's diminishing, you feel very unhappy. Which is another thing, you know, is when you let go. When is the time to say and call it the day and say that this one did not go? That's another important thing, to be able to stand up and say that, you know, let's bury this one. Yeah. It didn't fly.
Yeah, so that's also our approach. Like we rather lose portion of our investment and then get insane returns from very few companies. It's probably like the return for the portfolio is bigger that way, and personally it's much more interesting. Especially if the failing companies fail fast, so the entrepreneurs can start the next company and so on. It doesn't hurt anybody. So we're very happy to lose our investments. And the returns, like when we do especially in the beginning, we did very small investments, maybe 20,000, 30, 40,000, and now we're doing slightly bigger, 100, 150,000. But like on paper, some of the companies are 100 or 200 times more valuable than when we invested. But that's only on paper, so it's a long way from there to really selling and exiting the companies successfully. But also VCs, they're looking for kind of absurd returns on average. So that's why the 100 million kind of figure as the goal.
So Peter, how do you see, you know, in those companies that you choose, the role of the state financing, which is very strong and visible in Finland?
Yeah, so we kind of, as you know, we're part of this Vigo program, and our portfolio companies are typically leveraging state financing effectively. Well, what we say is that it absolutely cannot affect the strategy or even like the daily operations of the company, because then it's easier just to leave it and do it purely on private funding. And that's the biggest risk if you start changing something because of the government. So it's pretty important on early stage, because the early stage investment market is local and we don't have enough investors. I don't know if the current system is the optimal one. I think that the public money is not following the risk as directly as it should. I mean, the entrepreneurs should have risk, the investors should have risk, and then maybe there should be some public money to leverage that. But it's almost like too generous sometimes.
Yeah, I'm asking this just for that reason, that I think that we have a unique and fantastic system for supporting startup activity and getting ideas to fly. But if I meet any one of you on this context, you know, that you're pitching to me, if you within the first 15 minutes say one single time tekes, you already take my interest down. Because it's a given. It's important, but it's given. And one should not see the business idea to be geared around the public money. It's an important part of the thing, but the business should actually fly even without it.
Okay, I think, by the way, there's one question over there. Meanwhile, is there a mic?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'm William Wolfram from DealDash.com. This is for both Anssi and Petteri. For a Finnish company looking to do a consumer internet launch, would you recommend starting in a smaller market like Finland because it's local and less competitive, or immediately go into the US market or the UK or German markets?
Immediately go to the target market. We've seen that even in cases where the Finnish market should be just a small version of the US market, like where the consumer should be pretty much the same, being successful in Finland doesn't kind of guarantee being successful in the US. And even the same, so we thought initially that we could do test launches here and that would be a good idea, but in fact I'm pretty strongly against that at the moment. Just go to the target, as you have done, I know, but just go to the target market immediately.
I mean, if it is in the internet, it is global, and there is no other thing than a global market. But if you have an idea that actually has a thing associated to it, so it is not just an internet kind of based service, then I think you have to stop and you actually, and put a little bit color to this, you have to stop and think, is this ready? And of course, Finland is a great test market because if you do it in Finnish, nobody understands and you can hide it for quite a long time. But you then be dead sure that what you have is so differentiated that time is not one of the most important aspects of your business.
Yeah, true. So one last question and then we're done. Radar.
Radar Vasenius from Bream Incorporated. We work with brain training and we're at a stage where we're really seriously considering talking about investments from investors. Now, people are talking in quite worried tones about the economy maybe going down. How worried are the two of you currently looking at the trends? Should we quickly ask for your money now instead of February? Or how do you see the few coming months?
So I'm actually pretty worried about the situation because after 2007, the VCs, after that the VCs have invested much more than what they have raised new funds. And even 2009, 2010, this trend didn't change. So they were kind of, the VC funds are getting empty as we speak. And I'm not seeing big changes there. So it could get much harder for people to get money. I think angel, there's so much vibe here and a lot of stuff happening in Finland. So I think it doesn't affect the angel or the very early stage investments, but the later stage could get a lot tougher. And so we have been advising our companies who are looking for A rounds, for example, to take a bit more capital than what they would need, even though they would lose their ownership a bit more.
Yeah, I share that the uncertainty that's kind of prevailing at the moment is probably not going to impact so much. It's kind of early stage growth investments. But then, when you really look at scaling level investments where you need to get more in, I go, if you're ready, go now and ask a little bit more than you thought.
I think this, by the way, doesn't kill startups because startups are the most adaptive organizations in the world. They just have to do with less capital. And there will be new ways of developing companies, merging, partnering, and so on. They will survive. But if you can get funding at the moment, you should take it. The money will become, or the capital will be more valuable likely in the future. Okay.
Cool.
Thank you. We're running out of time, or we already ran out of time. So thanks a lot, and I hope to hear great pitches from you.
Thank you.